and welcome to another episode of Ben Talks About. I'm of course your host, Ben Contreras, and of course this is the show where I talk about stuff normally that people are not usually talking about anymore, simply due to the fact that I simply feel like it. However, this time we actually got ourselves a special occasion, where I actually decided to choose a topic to make a video on that is actually rather recent. And by recent, I mean the information was made just yesterday, and that is Nintendo's release of their own Pokemon Direct, as it is called, where they give us news about the latest information about upcoming games and other upcoming projects about, of course, Nintendo and Game Freak's well-deserved and acclaimed Pokemon franchise. Now, I'm not as overly huge of a Pokemon fanatic as much as other people who are probably making these type of videos, but I do have a deep respect and appreciation for the franchise overall. So I felt it was sort of appropriate to make this video. So the first few things that they started talking about in this Direct were definitely very small. I mean, there were two major topics that they had announced before that most people were anticipating the most with this Direct. And they announced some stuff like for that new Pokemon Unite game. They announced how the mobile version of the game has a release date, and all the certain Pokemon that are going to be added to that, as well as different exclusive stuff for the Nintendo Switch version of the game. They announced the new Pokemon Cafe Remix, which I believe is another mobile game. That's sort of like a puzzle game that's getting this sort of revamp. I have no experience with that game, and it didn't really take my interest that much. However, they did also announce that they're adding a few Pokemon from the Generation 8 games, Pokemon Sword and Shield, into Pokemon Go, which, better late than never, I guess, although honestly the game probably should have launched with a large majority of the Pokemon that it didn't have at first, but regardless, it is nice that Generation 8 is getting itself some appreciation. And speaking of which, they also announced a couple of things for the 2-year anniversary of their other mobile title, which was Pokemon Masters EX. They're adding some new events, new characters, bringing back a few older events that most people probably didn't get to experience when the game came out originally. So, for people who are fans of that game, they have that to look forward to. However, the two major things that people were anticipating the most with this Direct were the information on the brand new remakes of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, those being Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, as well as more information on the new upcoming title, which is coming out later next year, Pokemon Legends Arceus. Both of the games are coming out on the Nintendo Switch, and people are definitely anticipating these games. So we're going to go ahead and talk about them in order. So we're going to talk about the Generation 4 remakes first. Now, these games have been anticipated for quite a long time, ever since the release of Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire for the Nintendo 3DS. Lots of fans were anticipating that they would finally give the Sinnoh region the remake that it deserves, because while lots of people consider Generation 4 to be one of the most divisive games in the series, lots of people either really like it or they really don't like it. I'm personally the kind of person who, despite not having played much of Generation 4, I do still think that they're rather good for being Pokemon games. Sure, they do have a couple of flaws with the game's speed and all of that, but it didn't introduce a couple of things that we would know the series more for. That being the split of the the physical and special type attacks, as well as putting a bit more emphasis on the actual story of the game rather than having it be a straightforward run-through for all the gyms, which would be more tweaked on and perfected, at least to most people in Generation 5. But yeah, lots of people were looking forward to this game, and the original release trailer for the game definitely got a lot of divisive opinions. Lots of people were really hyped up at the fact that they were finally getting remakes of, this game that they probably grew up playing as a kid, and then there's the other side who believed that the main thing that really detracted them from this game is, without a doubt, the art style. Now, the game has a very different art style compared to the stuff that we've seen in stuff like, Sword and Shield and even also with their previous Pokemon remakes, Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, which is honestly an entire different can of worms. But despite that, I do feel like the regardless of, the new chibi proportions that they're giving all of the characters and the environments, during the overall parts of the game, I do feel like there was a lot of potential with this art style, because I feel like these type of remakes benefit the most when they're trying to, cater to the original audience of those games. I think that's one of the primary reasons why a lot of the time when we get these type of games, they're trying to be as faithful to the original games as possible. If you look at some of the previous remakes that came out for Pokemon, starting with Fire Red, Leaf Green, they were very faithful to the original Generation 1 games. It felt like you were going through the Kanto region once again, but they added a lot of stuff to also enhance the experience and to show how much more power the Game Boy Advance had compared to the original Game Boy ones. And that's why I personally consider that, as well as Heart Gold and Soul Silver, probably to be the most objectively best remakes in the series so far. And then afterwards, you look at stuff like, like I said, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, it's a very faithful remake of the Generation 2 games, but they add a lot of extra content to make it more worthwhile. Then we got stuff like Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire for the 3DS, which, added a lot to Generation 3, and also brought in a lot of the enhancements that came out during the time of Generation 4, 5, and 6, to make those, have that be a much more, like a very, what's the word I'm thinking about? A more enhanced sort of adventure. And then afterwards we got ourselves Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, which are more or less trying to cater to the fans who were introduced to the series via Pokemon Go, trying to give them a game that they're able to play and allow them to have their first forte into Pokemon, especially, and that's the main reason why I decided to remake it as the Kanto region, rather than, doing the next step and giving us a remake of Generation 4. Thankfully, this version of the game does not include the capture mechanic that made Let's Go rather infamous in my personal opinion. They're making this as more as an actual traditional Pokemon game, meaning you're able to go through wild encounters, you're able to catch Pokemon, fight trainers and all of that. And if you look past the the chibi-fied proportions of all of the characters, the rest of the environments are on par, in my opinion, with the Let's Go games. When you look at screenshots of Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, those games look really, really, really good. And I think that's one of the main reasons why I feel like lots of people would probably say that the environments in, say, Let's Go are superior than to certain points in Pokemon Sword and Shield, even though I personally think those games look perfectly fine. I feel like that was because they had a much more smaller scale world to work with, and given that still has the traditional overhead view that the Pokemon series is known for, they were allowed to put more of an emphasis on making the smaller environments look really good. And I feel like these Generation 4 remakes are going to be able to excel at that, going back to this overhead view sort of style. And in my opinion, I always thought that the 2D Pokemon games always looked really, really good, especially when compared to the 3D games. The 3D games look perfectly fine, but, 3D graphics don't age as well as traditional 2D graphics, especially when you compare it to stuff like Generation 5, which are games that I think still look really good to this very day. But yeah, as I said before, this does seem like they're trying to do they're making it a faithful remake of the Generation 4 games, while also adding a couple extra things that were initially not in the Generation 4 games, and they're going to be using those to make it a more enhanced experience like they've had with the other remakes. And I feel like one of the major things that will probably make or break this remake is definitely, without a doubt, the Pokedex. The original Generation 4 Pokedex, I'm talking about the one from Diamond and Pearl, not the enhanced version for Pokemon Platinum, which came out a while later on. The original Generation 4 Pokedex, let's not deny it here, was really not that good. They had they had a very small amount of type coverage, especially and most notoriously the fact that there was only one full line of fire type Pokemon in the entire region, and it was the fire starter. So unless you decided to choose Chimchar throughout your journey, you would have to either catch one of the Generation 1 Pokemon that they put in the game, or just not have a fire Pokemon at all on your team. So, fans of fire type Pokemon are kind of screwed over there. But thankfully they were able to change that with the release of Pokemon Platinum, adding more Pokemon to the dex and adding more of a variety of types, which makes Pokemon Platinum the definitive version of Generation 4. And I really do hope that they do go along with the Platinum Pokedex and not do the original Diamond and Pearl Pokedex. Lots of people were sort of afraid that they were going to do so, seeing as many interviews were out there saying that they're trying to make this as faithful to Generation 4 as possible, but I feel like that sort of thing has sort of been taken out of context in a way, because I feel like what they're trying to do is that they're trying to make it a faithful remake of Generation 4, while also at the same time adding a lot of the stuff that came out later on that would, like I said, make it a more enhanced experience. I've been using that phrase a lot lately, but, I personally think that that's what they're going to do. We still have a couple of, we still have until I believe, it was been a while since I looked at the dates, but I do believe there is the initial release date for the games were, these games aren't going to be coming out until November, so we still have a few months left to see if we're going to get any other information on the games. I feel like there isn't too much left to talk about until the games eventually do come out. Unless they do make any sort of live announcements talking about certain stuff that they're putting into the game, to sort of address the type of questions that people might have about these games. I feel like that may not be the case though, and a lot of the stuff that I feel like they have shown off, especially in this Direct, were actually rather well done. They showed a lot of the stuff that would be returning, like the return of the contest, which now takes the form of this sort of rhythm game that you have your Pokemon participate in, being able to customize the style of your character. That's a really good change. I am hoping that they do have it so that it's a lot more customizable than they actually showed. Hopefully it's more so that you have a larger variety of styles that you can pick through rather than having it all be a predetermined set of outfits. The Pokeball customization, which I personally feel like they should have kept for Generations 5, 6, and 7, and eventually 8. But they're bringing that back. The Underground looks like it's not going to be online required. Hopefully it's not anyway, so you'll be able to do a lot of the activities there without having to have any sort of subscription service. And they're also adding a lot of other stuff to the Underground, like certain wild Pokemon are only available in these areas if you have certain items and statues in your Pokemon base that you could put there, which allows you to customize a specific room with all sorts of different accessories, sort of something akin to something like Animal Crossing. And it seems like a lot of Pokemon in these parts are showed off that they are going to be putting a lot more of a larger variety of Pokemon compared to what Diamond and Pearl initially had. And they showed off all the environments. The battle system is the same as it has been before, and it just seems like it seems like a sort of it seems like a typical remake of a previous game in my personal opinion. I am definitely excited for when these games eventually come out, and I'm definitely hoping to see a lot more stuff added to the game to make it more to make it as a good tribute to Generation 4 for the audience that grew up with the game, as well as a good introduction to a generation that a lot of newer fans might have missed out on, especially considering those games go for a large amount of money nowadays. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about the remakes of Generation 4. Now we have the main thing that I feel like they've been putting a lot more emphasis on during these two games' development, and that is Pokemon Legends Arceus, which is going to be coming out much later on in 2022. This game is definitely seems like something that lots of people have been, lots of Pokemon fans have been pleading for, and that is a sort of a more real-time based sort of RPG sort type of game that takes place in the Pokemon world. There have been a lot of fan projects that were made way back in the day that tried to have this sort of thing. One of the main ones that I can immediately think of was the Pokemon Generations fan game that was made quite a while ago. Which did Pokemon fully in 3D before Sword and Shield did. Um, so this game definitely seems like something that is much more different compared to the traditional games. It feels like it's sort of a combination of it feels like a combination of Pokemon mixed with Breath of the Wild, mixed with a bit of something like Monster Hunter, as well as a few other type of games that have that sort of real-time RPG kind of style to it. But at the same time, they did show off that it was still going to have it feels like it's still going to feel like something in the Pokemon franchise, and it feels like this game is sort of like, again, it feels like something that lots of people have been yearning for, and that is to tell a story that takes place before, the modern era of, the world of Pokemon takes place. It takes place in a much more older generation of time, where this region, which I believe is meant to be a prehistorical version of what would eventually become the Sinnoh region. I feel like that's the reason why the two main Avatar characters look the exact same as the characters from Diamond and Pearl, and it feels like this game is going to be, it feels like it's going to be fun. I definitely think that this is the type of game that is meant for people who have been wanting this sort of change for Pokemon for quite a while. All the Pokemon that you see in this one are not ones that are completely random. They're ones that you can actually see in the wild. So you'll be able to be given the choice on what you want to encounter, which is something that they did do with the Let's Go games as well as Sword and Shield. But it feels like this game is trying to put a lot more emphasis on that. A lot of the Pokemon behave differently compared to one another. Some of them are not hostile towards you, some of them will outright attack you, some of them will run away, and I feel like that's going to allow for lots of different strategies on how to approach a battle, because there is the potential for lots of encounters to start out with you not having to battle them at all. Not quite sure how well that would work in an RPG game like this, but again, we would have to wait to see when that comes out. The story that it seems to be making is trying to put a lot more emphasis on catching Pokemon rather than going through stuff like gyms and all of that. And a lot of the characters definitely feel unique, especially compared to games that we've seen beforehand. And I kind of laugh at the fact that the group that you eventually join that gives you the catching all of these Pokemon is actually called the Survey Corps, which, if you look at the live stream when they originally announced that and made that statement, you go and just see nothing but Attack on Titan jokes there. By the way, that's a series I really got to go back to. But anyway, regardless, it definitely feels like this game is being given more effort. Not necessarily effort, but it feels like they're trying to put more emphasis on this game compared to the Gen 4 remakes, and while I don't necessarily agree that that should be the case, I feel like both of these games should have an equal amount of effort put into them, but it does definitely feel like there's they're putting a lot of love and care into this, specific spin-off game, if this is considered a spin-off. Hopefully this doesn't set the sort of status quo for Pokemon games in the future. Hopefully we're still able to see more traditional style Pokemon games like Sword and Shield were, but still given the sort of, the stuff that are later established in this game to make them more of a better experience, I guess you could say. I'm not quite sure if what's coming out of my mouth is making any lick of sense, but if it is, then, hooray, and if it's not, then I'm pretty much used to it at this point. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to both these games eventually coming out, and I am definitely excited to see how the sort of again, set the status quo for the Pokemon series in general, because after this, they're definitely going to have to be working on the ninth generation of Pokemon games. So, you know, that's going to be definitely a special thing to look forward to once they announce it. Not quite sure when that's exactly going to come out, since they're probably going to be adding more DLC sort of content like they did with Generation 8 with this new Legends Arceus game, and I hope that, you know, these games are going to be well received by the fans, and will be allowed to see, you know, other games that are rather similar to these ones. So yeah, that's really all that I have to say about, you know, these two, what was going on here at the Pokemon Direct. Again, I hope you all enjoyed probably this rather long video here. So if you enjoyed it, let me know in the comment section down below. You know, all the subscribing, liking stuff, that's all entirely up to you. Or at least I personally feel like that should be the case. And until I see you all next time with a different topic, which, you know, might actually be another one that's actually relevant, until I see you all again, I'm Ben Contreras, and bye.